Now, let's imagine we're building a ride-sharing application like Uber, so people can use their phone and request a ride. So we create a class called ride. Now, in this class, we can have properties like passenger, as well as pickup, location, drop-off, location, and so on. But let's not worry about these properties and talk about keeping track of the active rides. So we want to know how many active rides we currently have in our system. So we define a property called active rides of type number. Now we get a compilation error because we haven't initialized this property. So here we can create a constructor, or we can initialize this property directly here. Good. Now in this class, we're also going to have methods like start and stop. So this is where we increment this.activeRides, and stop where we decrement this.activeRides. Great. So we have a ride class. Now let's create two rides. So ride 1, it's going to be a new ride. And here we call ride1.start. Now I'm going to duplicate these two lines and change ride 1 to ride 2. Okay. Now finally, let's log the number of active rides on the console. So log ride1.activeRides and ride2.activeRides. Great. Now here in the terminal, let's compile and run our program. So we see 1, but we currently have 2 active rides. Why is this happening? Well, here we're dealing with 2 separate objects, ride1 and ride2, and each object is in a separate space in memory. So each object is independently tracking the active rides. That is why we have this issue. What we need here is a single or global place where we can keep track of the active rides. And this is where we use static properties. A static property is a property that belongs to a class and not an object. So we're going to have only one instance of that property in memory. So on the top, where we define our property, we're going to prefix this with static. Now this property belongs to the ride class and not a ride object. So down below, look, when we try to get ride1.activeRides, we get a compilation error saying property active ride does not exist on type ride. Did you mean to access the static member ride.activeRides instead? That is correct. So we're going to replace ride1 with the ride class, and one more time. Yeah, these two lines are the same, so I'm going to delete one of them. So now this property belongs to the ride class, and that is why we also have 2 compilation errors, because in the start method, this references the current object, but an instance of the ride class does not have a property by this name. So once again, we need to replace this with ride. Okay. Now let's run our program one more time and see what happens. Okay, we see 2 active rides. Beautiful. So this is how static properties work, but there is a problem in this implementation. The problem is that anywhere in this code, I can directly modify ride.activeRides. So I can set it to 10, and this is going to create a bug in our program, right? So once again, we're going to use access modifiers. So we're going to make this private so we cannot access it directly. And then we're going to create a public getter for reading its value. So in this class, we're going to define a getter called active rides. Now I forgot to rename this property to underline active rides. Good. Now this is our getter. So it's going to be a method that returns ride.underline active rides. Okay. Now this method, this getter is currently part of a ride object. That's why we have a compilation error here saying property active rides does not exist on type ride. So to move this to the ride class, we have to prefix this with the static keyword as well. Now let's look at the error one more time. This time the error is saying cannot assign to active rides because it's a read-only property. Great. So now this can prevent us from accidentally creating bugs, and we have a single place where we can keep track of the active rides. So when we make a property or a method static, that property or method becomes part of a class and we'll have only a single instance of them in memory.